All right, and joining me on the phone now, very, very excited to have this man on the phone, the 2019 Naismith Coach of the Year, head coach, Tennessee Vols. Rick Barnes is on the phone. Coach Barnes, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm glad to be with you.
Well, the pleasure is mine, Coach. The pleasure is mine. And, you and I were kind of talking a little bit off air just about, obviously, look, we're in unprecedented times and all that stuff. First of all, I would ask, how are you holding up? How's your family holding up? And I'm just going to be blunt right off the top. I mean, how are you passing the time? Because for people who don't know, for people who think that a college basketball coach's season ends the day that their season ends on the court, it's the furthest thing from the truth. This would be a time that you and your staff would be out on the road recruiting, evaluating the next high school class of 2021. Just how are you spending this free time? And hopefully, obviously, you and your family are staying safe.
Aaron, the thing that coaches, as you said, I've been doing this for over 40 years, and so my routine was really, obviously, like everybody else, disrupted in a time where I'm like, wow, this is really something, because in my coaching career, I've never lived through anything like this at this point in time of the year. Everything, the NCAA tournament, and into recruiting. Then right now, really one of the tough things is that I really miss having our guys with us, because the spring was a time that we really enjoyed, being around each other in a different way. You got to spend time with your guys individually, where you worked on their skills, and it was a really a fun time, one of the really good times to be with them. But personally, I'm like everyone. Obviously, my wife and I, we took this very seriously. We would normally, if we did have any time at this time, we always try to get to go see our grandkids and spend time with them, but we're not going to do anything other than what we're supposed to be doing by what the guidelines are. But I think, like most people, doing a lot of different interviews with people, and we are staying in touch with our players daily and trying to help them through this as much as possible, making sure they understand how serious it is. And I think the best thing that we did was, as soon as we got back and from the tournament when it was canceled, we got everybody home with their families, because I know at that point in time, what I wanted was to be with my kids and my grandkids. And even though we're not able to do that, that was my first thought was, as a parent, what do you do right now? And you just want to get your families back. But the good thing is, we talk to our players. They tell us how much they miss and they want to get back at it, which is a good thing. But it's still a pretty surreal time going on right now. I think over the next couple of weeks, we're going to get a little more clarity in terms of, if we're going to take everything off pause and slowly move back into it. I think it's still going to be a transition, but I don't think any of us know what's going to happen in terms of, our summer school's already been canceled and it's going to be online, but in terms of our players and football season and all that, none of us know, which is, it's hard for any of us to move forward until we know any of this stuff.
What does the daily routine look like? Or, just in terms of, I've found talking to people in your industry, you're still able to figure out a way to do a staff meeting by computer, or, a team meeting, or checking in with advisors or tutors or whatever. Do you have a routine? Because obviously, not even in the basketball sense, but in the broader picture sense, I think that's something that a lot of people are trying to figure out, is what can be a routine, either for work, for your personal life, for your exercise, whatever. Do you have a routine that you and your staff are in at this point?
Well, what I do like here, we've got great leadership at the University of Tennessee system, from Randy Boy, the president of the system, down to Dante Plowman, Philip Former, our athletic director. They do an incredible job keeping us abreast of what's going on here with our university, and obviously with our athletes, our students in general. And I have a staff that has some young kids, and what I really admire about my staff, they've been a great example for their children in terms of how to take this seriously. So we talk, we do talk daily, really, and we go about that. But personally, my deal is that every day I get up and I always try to spend time in the Word with the Lord, and I have spent more time physically trying to get myself in, I guess, better shape is what I would tell you. And then sometimes mid-morning, I've been on mini Zoom conversations, talking to different people and doing some different things. The afternoon, that'll come back up some. And I've enjoyed doing that. And obviously, again, we still try to daily stay in touch with those guys, and my assistants do a really neat job with some of the things that they do. And then we still recruit. We are on the phone with recruits, and we still talk. But as far as we would never get together as a group, even though none of us has been told that we've had the virus or anything like that. But I just really admire my staff for the way that they've done a really good job of letting their young kids know that when something like this happens, it's really important that you pay attention to the authorities.
Yeah, it is. It's just a fascinating, unprecedented time. And what I've found interesting is hearing about guys like yourself and people in your industry, the ability to continue to do your job remotely and all that stuff, even if it is unprecedented. Coach, you brought up something really interesting, and I don't think I've fully realized this. You said you've been doing this a long time. I looked this up. You got your first head coaching job at 32 years old, which I don't know that even happens anymore. And I was just thinking, I believe it was 1987, you get a head coaching job at George Mason. What is the biggest thing about you that has changed in those 30 whatever years? Because I'll be honest, Coach, I do remember you from the Providence days, and I remember you from the Clemson days many years ago. I'm probably dating myself a little bit with that, but I was just thinking about the all the different things that you've probably seen through 30 plus years in college basketball.
It's interesting when you look back on it. The one thing that I do think we all go through, changes as you're in the business. I think you have to keep doing that. I think that the key, if you ask me one single key, is that you never think you know it all, and that you realize that there's something that you can learn every single day. I do know this, that I made a lot of mistakes when I was a young head coach, but I had some wonderful mentors. I was very fortunate that my first athletic director, Jack Vance, was a basketball coach before he became an AD, and I got to know him as an assistant at George Mason when he first came in as the AD there. And Jack was a guy that when he hired me, he said, "Hey, I don't have the money where you can hire a lot of experienced coaches around you, but I'm around if you need me." And he was always there for me. And then a year later, I go to Providence, and I'm blessed to have Dave Gavitt, commissioner, founder, one of the founders of the Big East. And it certainly is his dream to do something like that. And so I got to spend quality time with him as a young coach, where he was a terrific mentor. And then along the way from there, I've worked with really good athletic directors. I've had good people. But the key is, no doubt, the reason is I have done one thing that I learned at a very young age, and I'm not even sure how I came across it, but I always knew I wanted to hire people that I thought were better than me. And I go back and some of my staffs that I had, while I was at Providence, you mentioned it, I had Larry Shyatt, who successful coach, Fran Purcell, Dennis Felton, and Danny Gavitt, who now is, if Danny would have stayed in coaching, he would have been as successful as anybody. But I go back to my first, when I volunteered at Davidson College, I was on a staff with Bob McKillop, and who's now the head coach there. He's been there forever. The course named after him, and I was with him for, a year. Jeff Busdelic, who has had a terrific basketball career. John Cochin, who's no longer in the business, but was a very instrumental part of it. Eddie Beanbach was in it for a long time. So I got started out with a group of guys that, one, they talked a lot about recruiting, understanding the importance of recruiting. But, always, coach, player development. And, again, through the years, I made it wherever I went. I wanted to make sure that in my mind that I had the best staff in the country. And you go back and look at guys like Frank Haith, who was a part of my staff. He was the head coach at Tulsa, Rodney Terry at UTEP. Chris Ogden now, who is at UT Arlington, and Rob Lanier, who's at Georgia State. I've had those kind of people with me, and the one thing I did, I let them work. I let them tell me, hey, and I'm not a big staff meeting person, because I found out as an assistant coach, when you go into a staff meeting, there's always one guy that wants to do a lot of talking, or another guy they don't, back and forth, and I just never felt like you really got what everybody was thinking. So I don't have staff meetings in terms of when we're talking basketball. I call my coaches every day. I mean, in touch with each one of them individually, because I feel like they'll speak more transparent with me when it's just me and them. And because I want the input of every guy on my staff that's around me on the court, because I value their opinion. And the staff that I have right now, Mike Schwartz, Kim English, and Desmond Oliver, I think is the very best in the country. And our strength and conditioning, you know, we put a major emphasis on that. Todd Wright, who was with me for 20 years, is now the head strength coach out there with the Clippers with Doc Rivers and that team. And one of his proteges, Garrett Mayhall's with us. And I even take it a step further. Even our director of basketball operations, I never hired a coach in that position because I wanted an administrator that could really understand the administrative side of it, and someone that I knew would be fighting for us during staff meetings and things like that, you know. But over that time, I think that's one of the key things that have happened. And from a basketball standpoint, I love the game. And if I ever got where I didn't look forward to going on the practice court, I think that's when you know it's time to step away from it. But like right now, I feel as eager to get back at coaching as I did, 40-some years ago.
And that's exactly what was going to be my next question is that, what does motivate you? Because, again, to go back to what we said earlier, it is a taxing job. You are on the road all summer just to get back in the fall and then start recruiting again in the fall, and then the season starts and you're on a plane once a week. I mean, it's something that I feel like if you don't love it and you don't love essentially every element of it, and no job is perfect, but if you don't really love what you do for as long as you've been doing it, and again, I'm not going to talk about a man's age on, live here, but, I feel like at this point you would have found something else to do if you still didn't have a passion for it, even at your age.
Yeah, and when you talk about it, that word passion. I mean, I would take that to players. We've coached 30-some guys that have gone on to play in the NBA, and we've had a number of other players that were more than talented enough and more than blessed enough to be able to do that, but they lack that word, passion. And when you want to excel, when you want to be a part of a league like the NBA, where there's less than 400 players, you got to have a talent. There's no doubt about it, but you got to have a passion and burning desire to want to get better, knowing that you're part of a team or whatever role that team wants to put you in. You got to be willing to buy into that role. And player development is a big part of our program. Every coach talks about it, and I'm sure every coach in their own right feels that what they do is what is good, obviously, but it's something that's really important to us. And but for my own personal self, there's a passion there. See players come in. I want to see them have a chance to chase their dreams. I don't think we've ever recruited a player that didn't say to us that, I want a college education, but my goal is to play in the NBA one day. And I think the key to when you get to those conversations, it's got to be a very transparent talk. And first of all, they've got to know what they're up against. I mean, 99.9% of the guys that dream that dream aren't going to make it to that level to a degree that they can stick there. But there's a lot of guys that we've coached that have done really well going overseas through the years and playing. And worked their way back a different way. P.J. Tucker had to do that. And he was drafted, played a couple of years, and had to go abroad, but came back, and look what he's done. So there's always a way if you're willing to continue to work at it and you stay with that passion. And what we want to do is, I don't want our guys to ever look back and when their time is up here and say, man, Coach, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? So we're trying to stay up with the times and all the different learning techniques. And you got to figure out what makes each guy tick and how he learns best. Some guys are visual learners. Some guys, they need to be pushed daily, and but they thrive with that. Other guys, maybe not so much. And it's neat when guys leave and guys that you felt when they were with you, they didn't get it. You don't understand that. And there were guys that you just felt like they probably looked at you like they're not getting a square deal, and the whole time all you're wanting them to do is just to buy into the culture. And
Sure.
they do that with work, and it's neat sometimes. It's neat, not sometimes, all times when they come back later and say, "Man, Coach, I just wish I could have seen it sooner. I appreciate what you guys are doing. I just couldn't see it." And that's what you realize at our level. The clock is running, and that window is closing on you every day as a player. And if you don't and aren't ready to jump through that window when your number's called, it'll close up and somebody else's window's going to open up. So it's constant motivation. It's constant ways of each day trying to reinvent yourself and keep trying to do everything you can to help your players go after it with a vengeance.
So you mentioned a lot of different things there. To get to kind of some of the Tennessee stuff, I mean, two of the guys that were part of your first recruiting class, and I'll be honest, I don't even know if you recruited them, if the previous staff did, but thinking about buying into a culture, development, all that stuff, Admiral Schofield, Kyle Alexander, both were at the very least on NBA rosters last year. I think Kyle was pretty banged up over these last couple of months, but I was just fascinated that, the narrative was what these guys' recruiting rankings were. And again, I don't know if you inherited them from the previous staff or whether you and your staff kind of found them when you got there. But what was it about those two guys? Because I feel like for everything that you've done over at Tennessee over the last 5 years, those two were kind of the backbone of it as part of that first recruiting class.
Well, Admiral played for one of my former players at Providence, Dickie Simpson, and Dickie had asked me to look at Admiral when I was at Texas, and we did, but we didn't have a scholarship, and Admiral signed with Tennessee, and then he had been recruited by that staff. Dickie lives in Chattanooga, and when we got here, Admiral would be an incoming freshman, and you said Grant, right? You mentioned Grant.
Well, I said Kyle Alexander because he was part of that first class, right?
Okay, Kyle was coming with us. We had recruited Kyle to come to Texas with us, and we were going to redshirt Kyle.
Okay.
And that's what we were going to do. But once we came to Tennessee, Rob Lanier had done a really good job with his family and talking to him, said, "No, we'd like for you to come." And he hadn't signed at Texas, but he was, at that point where he could have, but I said, "Now, but you're going to be in a different role now. You're going to have to come in and you're going to have to play, and you're going to have." And it looked like a little baby giraffe, trying to get going. But looking back, and it would have been wonderful for us to be able to redshirt him at Tennessee, but we couldn't. We didn't have the bodies to do it. And Kyle played, and he kept getting better and better and better, and that's why I think he's going to be. There is no doubt in my mind he will find a way to stick in the NBA for a long time. He just needs time because he'd only been playing basketball for 3 or 4 years. Wow. Once Rob found him up in Canada, and but Admiral Schofield and Kyle Alexander were the ones, probably more so, along with Kevin Punter, who we inherited, who was a senior. Those three guys were the guys that laid the culture down that we wanted, and that's based on 3 words, honesty, integrity, and responsibility. But those 3 guys were the guys that really helped us lay that thing down. Just when we first got here, then we came back with a recruiting class with Grant Williams and Fulkerson and Bone and Jordan Bowden, that group of guys. But and then none of those guys were what everybody talks about 5-star, 4-star, whatever. It goes back to what I said earlier about our staff. We're going to evaluate our own players. We understand that other people out there. I mean, it's easy to put a 5-star on Kevin Durant and LaMarcus Aldridge and guys like PJ Ford. That's easy. But there's other guys that you find that that they're going to fit your culture perfectly. And what we don't do, we made the mistake, and I don't think we have it, where you're trying to put a square peg in a round hole in recruiting, and it doesn't work normally. You say, well, we maybe can take one guy that doesn't quite fit the culture, but normally it doesn't work the way you want it to. And some coaches can make it work. Don't get me wrong, some guys can. But here, those guys came in and laid down the culture, and that's what we have in place right now. And we got a really good group of guys that have been through it, that understand it, and then we've got a good group coming in this year.
Real quick on Grant Williams, I read a story that, listen, it's been well documented that maybe he wasn't the most, physically imposing kid when you guys got him. It's a lot changed in 3 or 4 years, and certainly in the NBA. But is it true that his mom used to send him desserts and you had to take them away because maybe he was eating some stuff outside of the team meals that maybe he shouldn't have been eating?
Well, I go back to sometimes in coaching, you compare guys when you're out there recruiting. You say he's a little bit like this. Well, his body is a little bit like P.J. Tucker. And the first time I saw P.J. Tucker, he was out of shape, really out of shape. And my college roommate told me, he said, I can tell you he wins every time he plays. And if you know P.J., that's a perfect statement about him, because he wants to win in everything that he does. But he was out of shape, point blank, and so people were afraid of it. First time I saw Grant, he was out of shape, but he made one play. He turned, spun baseline, and went up and dunked the ball like he would ease. He hadn't done it the whole game, and you're sitting there thinking, well, he's got that in, and we just got to get it out of it all the time. And so we started talking to him about his diet when he first got here. And all players, all high school players, think when they come in, they know what hard work is.
Yes.
They think they know, and some high school guys definitely work harder than other high school guys. But there's a whole different level that they've got to get to when you get to college, and then obviously there's a whole different level they got to get to the big league. But when he came in one day, we were in there. We were telling him he's in. I think he named it the fat camp. So, he was above and beyond what we were doing as a group. He was on that treadmill. Admiral Schofield had to go with it. Admiral was one of those guys that was overweight. Thought he was in great shape. Found out he wasn't. And one day a package came in from Grant's mother, and I told him to open it, and it was 50 bags of Orville Rickenbach extra butter popcorn.
Wow.
And so I told him, I said, well, you can forget this. And I took it, and he was over on, I said, and he was just getting ready to get on the treadmill, and he went and got on the treadmill, and I walked up behind him with a fresh bag of his popcorn. I said, I'm glad your mom sent this to me, because I do love popcorn. I really do. And so, and other days he'd be in the gym doing stuff, and I'd wait till he was at the end of his workout, and I'd pop a bag of popcorn and walk up behind him and let him smell it.
Wow.
And you know what? I can tell you with pride, he didn't eat one bag of those 50 bags of popcorn, because he really took serious about getting himself in shape, and he really did transform his body. Both of those guys did. All those guys, Kyle Alexander, Grant, Admiral, all the guys here, because of the work that Durant made them all done with them.
I know there's still lots of good things ahead for you guys, but how proud of those guys were you, that collective group in 2017, or I guess it was 2018, excuse me, when you get there, there's multiple coaching changes in the 2-3 years before you got there. You're asking guys to buy into something that maybe they didn't sign up for, whatever the case, and within a couple seasons, you guys end up winning the SEC regular season title. I mean, how proud? I mean, obviously, I know you go into every season with big expectations, but I have to imagine that 2018 season was kind of special for you.
You know what? It really was special for a lot of reasons. One, we have great fans here. I mean, we have tremendous fans at the Vol Nation, and everybody talks about the fans. But, our first year here, we're playing on New Year's Eve and, 4 o'clock or 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I can't remember. But Rob Lanier tapped me on we're playing Tennessee State, and we're not very good. We're really not. We were struggling to get out of the gate. And he tapped me on me before the referee tossed about me. He said, Coach, it's incredible, man. He said, we got over 16,000 people here today.
Wow.
And what I realized, and that's, we climbed where we're really one of the top 5 teams in the country in attendance, but what I realized point blank that year was how much our fans appreciated just blue-collar, hard-nosed guys that were just really trying to give their all for Tennessee. And so that was a standard that first group really, even though we weren't very good, they played hard, they really did, and they stayed with it. But as we built the program, and the credit does go to the players, and our coaches did a great job of getting the right guys to fit that culture, but just to see the improvement daily, and it goes back to practice every single day, and that's what we talk about. Our motto here is not about me, but it is about getting better every single day, and that's not some fluffy motto words that, we take it very seriously, whether it's film study, individual film study with our guys, whatever it may be. We just want to get better each and every day, and then we want to bring it all together as a team. And when that happened that day, we beat Georgia in here that day to be able to be an SEC champion, and the fans were a huge part of it. I'll never forget the last 12 minutes of that game. Georgia was really a well-coached team. Coach Fox, who now is out at California, does a tremendous job coaching, and his team. It was a hard-fought battle, almost like a Sweet 16, Elite 8 kind of game, but we ended up winning it in the last minute, where Kyle Alexander made a great defensive play to deflect a pass into the post, and that really secured the win for us. But it's one of those days that you'll remember, because you realize how far that team has come from, losing, Kyle in 18, 19 games a year to finally, end up winning over 30 and being a conference champion.
What about this past season? I've talked about it a lot on this show and everything that I do, is that I think, all things considered, I thought you guys had actually a very impressive season. You finished 17-14, and on paper, okay, whatever. I think people would say, okay, that's a fine season, whatever, no big deal. But when you factor in that you lose two guys early to the NBA, and both of them played, they both got drafted, so it's not as though they shouldn't have left, but they did leave. Maybe one of them or two of them you weren't expecting to leave. Then, your starting point guard, Lamonte Turner, goes down with injury. Your new point guard, which I still can't get over, shows up in January from another country, had never played college basketball before. And I understand, the European leagues and, the foreign leagues. I know he's from South America, I understand there's good competition outside of the United States, but to arrive on campus in January and immediately be thrown into the starting lineup, and then for you guys to be in contention for a bubble berth late in the season, I know 17-14 doesn't feel great and you want to get better, and there were games that you feel like you should have won. I feel like, all things considered, it was a pretty impressive effort given what you guys had to overcome throughout this past season.
I tell you the honest truth, I agree with you, because this year, in some ways, what we had to do, we had to remake ourselves at least 3 different times because of the injuries you said. And what it basically got down to, we actually ended up losing, really 6 of our top 7 players from the team the year before, when Lamonte decided he couldn't go anymore. Once he knew his shoulder was really bothering him. He lost all feeling basically partially in his left hand, and he couldn't really get the ball up over his shoulder. But, Jordan Bowden hung in there, and he had a really tough year in the fact that, his role changed, but he just he had his worst shooting year since he's been here. And some of that was with the instability of who he was playing with night in and night out. But once Santiago Bascovi got here from, the NBA camp down in Australia, it's really, his story is remarkable. Like you said, he didn't even practice. He had really 2 days. We basically put in some set that he was familiar with from us watching him on tape. And so everything we had done up to that point, for the most part, we had to go away from. And for the next, and he had worked hard at trying to understand things that we were doing. But if somebody would have played a zone in the first 2 weeks he was here, we didn't even think about it. We never really got to put a zone defense in the way we wanted to this year, because we were constantly making our offense over. Well, we eventually started trying to play through John Fulkerson and E. Pons, which was good for us. But so I agree with you when we look back on it, the growth, and we finally started hitting our stride. We had a great win against Florida here, and then we beat Kentucky at Kentucky. We come home and Auburn played great and beat us, and that was a really disappointing game, because I felt like we had really got it going there, but we just weren't very good that day. But that's not to take anything away from Auburn, because they played great. And then we were waiting to go to the tournament, and he didn't play it, obviously, which we shouldn't have. But I agree with all that we went through this year. In some ways, this year was, again, I really appreciate the players, because it was a rough ride, because we were shell shocked when when Lamonte, we thought we were going to play through Lamonte Turner, Jordan Bowden, and Josiah James. Josiah gets hurt, misses the entire preseason practice. Lamonte in and out of practice every day, so there was never any rhythm. And so I'm really proud of our guys. So they found a way to fight through it, and we were competitive for the most part. The low point of the year was when Wisconsin came in. We couldn't have beat anybody that day. That was the day that Lamonte, before he decided he just said, I can't go anymore, and I think everybody was knocked back, and we didn't play very well. They did play well. We didn't have it, and then Santiago came in, and it was really the start. That's really where we started all over again.
I watched that Wisconsin game. It wasn't the best performance. I vividly remember that game, but I was going to say it does transition nicely into a big reason why I did want to talk to you. There's a lot of excitement about this upcoming season, 2020, 2021, and it's early, and let's all hope that things are back to normal and you guys can play the full season. But how excited are you to hopefully soon get this group to campus or in the end of the summer or whenever it is? It doesn't matter. But assuming there's a normal season next year, how excited are you about this group? Because you have a nice blend of older veterans. Obviously, the recruiting class has been well documented, one of the best recruiting classes in school history. How excited are you to get that group to campus this coming summer, fall, whenever it may be?
We are excited. We're all excited. I know the players are excited. They're all chomping at the bit to get back. The coaches are. We think we've got a chance to have possibly the best defensive team that we've had since we've been here. We know we've got some good returning players that have this year. They got put into the fire. They got to learn a lot in high level competitive games, and what we've added. We know this recruiting class is going to make an impact, and like I said, we think that we've got a chance to be as good as defensively as maybe any team that we've had.
I'm not positive if all of your guys from the recruiting class have signed, but for those who have, and for people who don't know, Coach can't talk about anybody that hasn't signed yet, but for the players that have signed, what are you excited about with them? Because obviously it's a very highly touted class. There was one player who was named a McDonald's All-American. I mean, how excited are you to or tell people about the players that you can that are coming in that are going to be Vols next year?
Well, Jaden Springer is he and Keon Johnson are two guys that we targeted really 3 years ago. And Corey Johnson, those guys are guys that we targeted, and we knew that we wanted to be a part of the program. They're very talented, high level, skilled players. I mean, they are. I can't. And what we like about those guys as much as anything is the fact that they'll bite you. And what I mean by that is they're very competitive, and so we're really excited about that. And we added EJ Anisficki. He signed 2 days ago, and he's a guy that is played at Sacred Heart and double guy there. His sister played here, won 2 national championships with Pat Summitt. She was a very competitive, hard-nosed player, great rebounder, and EJ's a terrific rebounder, but he's skilled. He can do a lot of other things. And so we're excited about each one of them. We think they all are going to make an impact some way, somehow. But like I said, we've got a good core group coming back. And we have setting out, DJ Bailey, who transferred in here from Oregon. And BJ, what we've added probably as much as anything offensively, we do have guys we think now that can break people down off the dribble a little bit more than we've had in the past. We think we can do some of that. But again, there's not one guy that we've signed that doesn't have the ability to really lock in and guard somebody one-on-one. That's what we're really excited about.
Last question. I couldn't let you go. We got to get one Kevin Durant story. I mean, we're talking about maybe the best, second best, third best basketball player on the planet. You worked with him for a year. I know that he loves you, your staff, the University of Texas, where you obviously were previously to the University of Tennessee. But when I say Kevin Durant, you got one good story off the top of your head where he took over a practice, or where I don't even know what it would be, but you probably have a couple that you've told through the years.
Well, one of the best stories was, we had lost everybody. We had it rolling pretty good there, as you know. And then once we lose Aldridge, Tucker, we lose them all. Graduation, we lose so many guys. Roy Alive, all these guys. We lost everybody. We had 4 players coming back, and only one player was coming back and had played significant minutes. It was A.J. Abrams. And we had signed a great class with KD and DJ Augustine, Damian James, Justin Mason, Dexter Pittman. We really had a good class of guys coming in. But I didn't have a clue. We really had one player coming back, and we ended up knowing we're going to start 4 freshmen along with AJ. We weren't sure how it all worked out, but 2 weeks into practice, the official practice, I got a call from Aaron Torres, who worked for me, but he, now he's, with ESPN, and he called me. He said, "Hey, how's your team?" I said, "I don't know how our team is, but I will tell you this: we've got the best player in the country." He said, "You mean the best freshman?" I said, "No, we've got the best player. Period." I said, "I don't know about anybody else, but this guy's going to have to play 35, 36 minutes a game," and he wanted to play 40. And but you know what? Being around Kevin, people don't realize, one, he would give up. Well, I hope they realize it now, that he would give up every individual player of the year, this, that, or whatever, and to win. That's all he ever wanted to do, is win. But you'd be shocked how many times we had to tell him, "We need you to take this game over." And because he would always defer to his teammates. I mean, he just wanted everybody to be a part of it, and his teammates loved him. He's a great teammate. But he is a guy that, you talk about, where guys like Kevin Durant mess you up as a coach, is that once you have him, and you have other guys that don't work as hard as he does,
sure,
and he's as talented as he is, you're looking at guys and say, "Hey, we've had a guy like Kevin Durant who is ultra talented, but he's also maybe arguably the hardest worker we've ever coached."
Wow. And
you don't get it when other guys who aren't as talented and aren't willing to work as hard as he worked, because he worked hard every day in practice. We were on him about his defense when he first came in. That was important. And but you know what he said? He said, "Hey, help me get better. I want to be coached hard. I want to be." There was not ever, you could never put the word prima donna with Kevin Durant. He was anything but that. And he wanted to get better every single day. If he didn't play well, as soon as he dealt with the media, he'd go right upstairs if we were at home to the practice gym and start hooping, playing. And we were on the road. I mean, he would want to come back and literally get off the bus when we unloaded there at our practice facility and want to go up. And actually had to tell the coaches, if he's going to do anything extra and above what we're doing, you guys can only shoot free throws with him, because he's going to be worn out by the end of the year. He did get tired. Don't get me wrong, he did, but he rode us. We rode him hard, and he got us to the tournament. And we lost, I think, Southern Cal, because they did a great job. He averaged 36 minutes a game for us, and he got every Player of the Year award. And I tell you, he deserved every one of them.
No, absolutely. And it's funny you mentioned the Fran Fraschilla story. I remember just being a fan at that point and seeing an interview that you had done at that time about, you thought he could win National Player of the Year, and people could forget this now, but it was the first year of the one and done era where the best high school players had to come back to college basketball. And I remember thinking, come on now, like, kid's good, whatever. We've all watched the McDonald's All-American game, and it was different. There wasn't as much easily available video of kids and all that stuff. But I remember thinking, like, come on, coach, now. Like, I know you want to hype up your guy a little bit here, but let's be realistic. And then, of course, I was made to look like an idiot, which is nothing really new for people who know me well. So, anyway, Rick Barnes, I almost said Fran Fraschilla. Rick Barnes, the head coach of the University of Tennessee. Coach, I genuinely genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate you making this time. I know UT fans are going to love it. I think it'll be something that, frankly, even non-UT fans love. So I genuinely appreciate you making some time. It was a lot of fun, and be safe, and I hope to do this again. I hope next time I talk to you, we're talking about on-the-court stuff, how your team's developing, all that. But thank you again. I very much appreciate it.
Appreciate you. Thanks for having me.